For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise. And you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble, and thanks for tuning in at thescribbleshow.com and on SoundCloud and iTunes. Well, the royal wedding is here, and it's really not even about the royal couple anymore, right? It's about Thomas Markle and Meghan Markle's half-sister. The dad loves the paparazzi. Half-sister is trying to get away from them. Both hospitalized this week. It's been really quite funny. So on top of the royal family sort of looking at this American trio, or duo anyway, as, outsiders, then you have all of this scandalous crap that's been happening. And as an entertainment reporter, I can tell you, I love it. I love it. Now, of course, it's sad. I'm not a sick person to think that, they're upstaging Meghan and making her second wedding, upstaged, but certainly it is kind of funny. Now, Peter Mansbridge, a legendary TV broadcaster from Canada, he hosted The National on the CBC for many years, decades even. He's joining us this week to talk about the royal wedding and everything that he knows about the royal family and his thoughts. It's all coming up today on The Scribble, and we're going to get into it right after this.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
As we continue our countdown to the royal wedding, I thought we should talk to a pro. No, you know what? A legend. We're going to talk to a legend at covering these types of things. He got his start in my hometown, or my home province of Manitoba, right? Peter Mansbridge from CBC is joining us on the line.
It started in Manitoba in 1968. And I covered my first royal event in Manitoba, actually, up in northern Manitoba in Churchill when the Queen and Prince Philip and Charles and Anne all came to Churchill as part of a tour of that province's centennial year. And that was I've still got my little ID card, the press card from that tour. So it was a long time ago.
Okay, I want to ask you then, do you keep all those little mementos? Because I've got a whole bunch of media passes from red carpet events and things like that. You must have quite a bit from decades.
Yeah, I do from a variety of events, from big UN conferences to many royal events and political conventions and you name it. So I've kept most of them over the years. It's more of I think it's more of an interest to my kids and my grandkids than it is to me these days.
I've got to ask you then, why did you never wear a Don Cherry suit at the National Desk? Why did it never happen?
You get right down to the heavy hitting questions,
yeah.
Right? There were times when in the old CBC building in Toronto, not that long ago, 25 years ago, there was no air conditioning, and in the summer months it got really, really hot. And the closest I'd come to wearing a Don Cherry outfit is I'd wear shorts because you were only seen from the waist up.
Right. Okay. All right. Everybody is excitedly waiting for Prince Harry and Meghan to walk down the aisle. Let's talk about the history, though, of royal weddings, because you've covered, it's 3 of them, right?
3, yeah. The first was Charles and Diana in 1981, and then Andrew and Sarah in 86, and then Will and Kate just a couple of years ago.
Take us there, though. What is it like? It looks very high class.
Well, they are, and those ones especially were, and Charles and Diana, Will and Kate, especially because you're dealing with the next in line to the throne. So it's a huge deal. Those were all in London and involved either St. Paul's or Westminster Abbey. Parade around Buckingham Palace, and then the famous balcony shot off Buckingham Palace once it was all over. This one will be different because it's at Windsor Castle, still a very royal place, but it doesn't have the kind of landscape that London does in terms of the background for one of these weddings. But they're a big deal. There's lots of pomp and pageantry, and you'll see a lot of the world's influential people at these kind of things. But this one is different in the sense that he's well down the succession list, number 6 at the moment, but he's also brought with him, in terms of this wedding, a lot of things to talk about. The bride, as we know, and Meghan Markle, is an American. She's an actress. She's a divorcee. She's older than he is. She's biracial. So there are lots of different angles which, even just a generation ago, would probably have prevented this marriage. But in today's world, it's a different world, and the monarchy has adapted to that different world, and we're seeing this happening in front of us in a few days.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
Jeremy Bradley here, back talking with Peter Mansbridge from the CBC, legendary anchor for so many years, so many decades, I guess. We're talking about the royal wedding. Let's talk tradition. Again, there's lots these things are like timed down to the minute, though, aren't they? Like, it seems like it's really scripted.
Or to the second. They really are, and there are all kinds of people standing at the sidelines who are tut-tutting if things go off track even a few moments. But it's a very particular ceremony, but it does boil down to the I-do's at the climatic point of all this. And so in some ways it's a wedding like any wedding. In others, of course, it's so very different because of all the pomp attached to it.
So what you're saying is that if someone runs long, they're getting like the wrap-up signal like at award shows?
I would imagine.
Now, people line the streets, though. I imagine that, they're camped out a long time before, probably more than Donald Trump's inauguration. Am I right?
Oh, I think there'll be more people there than that. Windsor is in effect a pretty small little community. It's got a huge castle. It dates back 1,000 years, and the property, the royal grounds around it are massive. I was there a couple of weeks ago and was allowed to go through some of those grounds, and like 1,000 deer running wild on the property. They've got this beautiful what they call the Great Walk or the Long Walk. It's a 3-mile walk leading up to the castle. Part of that walk we'll see this coming weekend when the royal couple will be, in a horse-drawn carriage, all this obviously weather permitting, will go up to the castle. It'll be a spectacular sight. But the community is going to come to a standstill because it can't handle a small crowd. There'll be massive crowds there. I mean, for the royal weddings we were talking about in the past, there were 1 million people around the palace. You couldn't get 1 million people into Windsor. I'm sure there'll be an attempt to get hundreds of thousands, but it will bring everything to a standstill. Roads will be blocked for miles around Windsor getting into it. Windsor's not far from London. In fact, when I was standing on the grounds a couple of weeks ago, you can look back towards London setting than what we were used to inside London and at the palace.
Now, you mentioned the horse-drawn carriage, and so there's a lot of historical traditions. You know, we always see the big floppy hats. What are some of the weird ones that you think that are a little bit off the wall, maybe over the top with these weddings?
Well, you know, we recall from the Will and Kate's wedding the fascination with the fascinator on the part of many of the women in attendance, and they're already trotting those out. There's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of those around, not just on those who are participating in the ceremony, but those who will be in attendance outside. So you know that'll be, but that was so last wedding.
Oh, okay.
You know, one assumes that there'll be something new for this one that everybody will be talking about immediately after the wedding, because I don't think most people were aware of what a fascinator was when Will and Kate got married, and then suddenly it was the rage. We'll see what happens here. Meghan Markle is a beautiful actress who's known for her spectacular outfits. One assumes she will have one on her wedding day that'll have a lot of the fashion people talking about.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Jeremy Bradley here, back with broadcasting legend Peter Mansbridge from the CBC, talking about Prince Harry and Meghan's upcoming wedding. Do you find that more people are getting involved in the royal family, like when there's these weddings and babies, as opposed to, a generation previous?
I'm not sure about that. You know, I think there's the normal discussion point around the royals. I mean, this time round, things are, a little different. Obviously, centers around Harry and Meghan as it should, but there's also an undercurrent of another discussion that's going on, and that is the Queen is 92, and she's not going to live forever, and the odds are that at some point in the next decade or so she's going to be leaving the scene, and it's pretty unclear of what's going to happen to the monarchy after that. I mean, we know the succession list. Charles will become king. But what will that actually do to the monarchy and the way it's kind of respected and revered? I mean, nobody will say a bad word about Queen Elizabeth. She's had a remarkable reign. She is loved and adored in all areas of the Commonwealth and countries with particular ties to Britain. Whether that be on the part of people who believe in the monarchy or not, they love her. What'll happen when she's gone? What'll happen when we suddenly start, seeing a different, face on our currency, in our case, in Canada's case, or on our stamps, or on those portraits that hang in public offices, or, and I like to think of the hockey arenas from coast to coast to coast in Canada, many of which haven't changed the picture of the Queen since the coronation. They sit at one end of a lot of hockey rinks in our country, and all that's going to change. And are people ready to sort of accept that, or are they going to start asking more serious questions about why the monarchy exists? I know they are, even in Britain, because we saw it when we were there a couple of weeks ago, and that is going to be an interesting discussion that has started to take place, and we'll see where it leads.
You mentioned the Queen, and you've met her, and I know she doesn't do interviews, from what I understand. But if you could ask her one hard-hitting question in an interview, what would you ask her?
It would probably be along the lines of why. Like, what is the actual need for a monarchy in 2018? Like, what purpose does it serve? Over history, we've watched that change quite a bit. much sort of a charitable organization. She's a patron of thousands of different charities. But beyond that, what's the point? And I think it would be interesting to hear what she has to say as the time gets closer to her passing on those responsibilities to the next in line.
When we look at the upcoming generation, it seems like, Prince William and Harry, they're more approachable, and they like being out there with the people, as did Diana. Why do you think that it's becoming more and more like that? Is it social media, and we just have this, easier accessibility to people?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of those things. I'm not sure Will is that, keen on spending a lot of time in the public eye. If anything, he seems to prefer not being in the public eye. Harry, though, is different, and that's why some people will look at this next week and say, wow, they are the modern couple. They are representative of what a modern monarchy could be. I mean, because of their differences from those in the similar position from the past, and because of the very public nature of their roles, they seem to love being out there in the public eye. But I think listen, they grew up in a very difficult time with what happened to their parents, which was a very public split, and then what happened to their mother and her tragic death, and their relationship with people like us, with the media, which has always been extremely tentative. Will has been obvious about his concerns about a media that's too close. Harry a little less so, but every once in a while he'll say something that shows that he's still burned by what happened during his childhood years. And they're aware of of social media, very aware of it, especially Harry and Meghan. And they, like a lot of other people in their positions, are not fans of some of the things that happen in social media.
Let's talk about the guest list. You mentioned it ends up being sort of a who's who of world leaders or of VIPs anyway. And much was made about Justin Trudeau not being invited to the wedding. Now, historically, though, are political figures usually involved? Like, why did this seem like such a scandalous thing that the Prime Minister wasn't involved?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a scandal, but not everybody gets invited to these things, and they've made their guest list seems to me more about people who represent organizations that they clearly care about on the charity side. Now, they've got a lot of friends coming, and there are friends of of both Harry and Meghan, especially Meghan from Canada, from her time living in Toronto, who will be there. But it's for them. It's not it's based on the friendships they've developed over time, over these past couple of years, as opposed to who should be there in some kind of political pecking order. Remember, Charles and Diana didn't really have a lot of friends. I mean, they were an arranged marriage. There's no question about that. These two are different, and they've met a lot of people along the way, and a lot of people they care about. And it's a small chapel compared with the ones that we've witnessed in the past few royal weddings. So it doesn't surprise me that there's less in terms of the political crowd than there are the charity-based crowd and the friendship crowd. Those are the kind of people they want there. And let's not forget, he's not next in line or even second in line. He's sixth in line. He's never going to be king unless there's some absolute catastrophe involving all the ones ahead of him. So it's a different situation than the others we've witnessed. But I'll tell you one thing, it's probably going to be 20 years before we see another royal wedding of any significance. So if you enjoy these things, you
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Jeremy Bradley again, joined by Peter Mansbridge, legendary broadcaster from Canada at the CBC on the National for many years, many decades. And we're talking about the royal wedding for Prince Harry and Meghan. There's a lot of tradition, though, when it comes to these things. But how much say does the couple get? Would Harry have the say of, like, no, I don't want all this? Would people be talking to him and saying, you know what, you should? Like, who makes that decision? Who makes the call? I mean, it's his wedding, but...
Yeah, I'm sure on this one, they have an enormous say in the way it unfolds. Obviously, the Queen and those around the Queen would have a certain say. She's just finally approved the wedding in the last couple of days. That's the tradition and the paperwork that has to be done involving anybody in the royal family. But, she would have a say. She would have to agree to allowing Windsor Castle to be used as the backdrop and the headquarters for the chapel for the actual service. But listen, it's their wedding, and I'm sure it's unfolding and will look like the wedding they want it to be.
Is there something you look forward to when you cover these weddings?
Look, I've spent 50 years in this business, and most of what I've covered is not this kind of light and airy stuff. It's pretty hard and at times, very emotional to cover. So when you get a chance to do something that is, hopefully a fun moment, it's enjoyable to do, and you look forward to having that opportunity. These things, much to some people's surprise, or the various royal events that I've covered over the years, you see a real mix of people in attendance, and I can safely predict that the crowds that we'll see at Windsor will reflect different ages, different cultures, different genders. It'll be a very diverse crowd, and with the hopes and desires that this thing turns out that the weather's nice, that everybody has a good time, and that they are a happy couple. The facts are that of those 3 weddings that I've covered, 2 of them ended in divorce.
Right.
One seems to be extremely solid, and they got 3 wonderful kids, and they seem very happy, and all that, and people can only wish the same for Harry and Meghan.
Well, then I'm going to ask you, what's more exciting for you to cover, a royal wedding or the Olympics? Because I know you've done a lot of those. What is it, 13 Olympics?
Listen, they're both, fun events. For all the reasons I just said about the royals, Olympics are great because the world is actually right in front of you. And, it's one of those rare occasions where that you're standing or sitting in the epicenter of something that's being watched around the world, that it's a shared world moment. So those are pretty exciting. But like royal weddings, those moments are enjoyable to be at. They're news in the sense that something's happening and something's different and changing. But it's not news in the sense that, somebody's suffering or there's some, violent change occurring, whether it's a natural one through some kind of disaster or whether it's made by humans and as a result of some conflict. All those things I've been at, and, my mind has been scarred by the emotions of what I've seen and all that, but events like this give you the opportunity to realize there's also another world out there, and so I enjoy them.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
Talking the royal wedding, Jeremy Bradley here again, joined by Peter Mansbridge from the CBC, The National, for so many decades. Of everything that you've covered and of all of the interviews you've done, I have to ask this one. Every reporter has a misstep, something that's happened to them, either live or just really embarrassing on the air. What is yours?
I've never had an embarrassing moment. I'm kidding. I've had many, like most people who've been in this business as long as I have. I'll give you my royal one. I was doing a live commentary of the arrival. This is 1972 or something. The Queen's sister, Margaret, Princess Margaret, was coming into Winnipeg to officially open the Winnipeg Art Gallery. And I was sent out to the airport to do the live commentary of her arrival, which was a big deal in those days. First of all, live coverage was a big deal. Second of all, any senior member of the royal family, of which she was at that time, was a big deal. So we're doing this live coverage, and the plane lands. She'd come in on a regular Air Canada flight. Plane lands, stairs are rolled up, the doors open. I've been told repeatedly that she would be the first person off the aircraft. So sure enough, this woman comes out, and she looks out at the crowd, and there's a big smile on her face, and I'm saying, there she is, Princess Margaret, big day for Winnipeg, and blah, 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 all that. And then I suddenly realized, that's not Princess Margaret. That's an Air Canada flight attendant. So that was a little awkward, and I got properly berated for that by the locals.
Not only the locals, but things like that, though, they make a way to the tabloids over there in England, don't they?
Oh, yeah, sure they do. Yeah. The tabloids love anything they can get that will turn the story a little bit in a way that will attract attention.
Finally, then, what are you doing during your retirement? You must be relaxing, going to the lake, golfing. No, you're still working for CBC, right?
Well, I'm actually working for myself.
Okay.
I'm a freelancer. I've retired from the CBC, but I have one of my contracts is with the CBC on documentary work. I'm doing a couple of documentaries, major one-hour documentaries a year, and the first one goes on this week, the night before the wedding, actually, and it's called A Royal Wedding for the Ages, when we kind of look back at some of the examples of the past and how the monarchy has changed in these last couple of hundred years, and how in many ways this is a real change that's taking place with Harry and Meghan, and what it may represent for the future as the monarchy is constantly challenged to kind of update itself and be aware of the times that are changing around it. So anyway, that I'm doing those. I'm involved in a lot of speeches. I'm on a number of boards as a director. So I'm actually very busy, but at a different pace, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Well, as always, CBC has full coverage and as you say, a bunch of royal specials and programming throughout the next few days, right? So we'll be watching for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I hope you do.
All right. Well, Peter Mansbridge, the legend, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeremy. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
Jeremy Bradley back on The Scribble. We're out of time. My thanks to Peter Mansbridge. Follow my live tweets from the royal wedding at Jeremy D. Bradley. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a Speak Free media presentation.
If you want some real heat,